Good afternoon, everybody. I am Mujtaba. I'm from Nova Southeastern University. I'm lucky to be here with the best paper. Congratulations to Feng. I'll start the presentation, then she'll tell you basically what she did and how she did it, so you get to hear from the winner. There's also another author here, Dr. Fisher, who's actually in Australia directly supervising what she's doing. So the presentation is about ethics, but I think in this case we get a little bit of intelligence about Vietnamese decision-making. Many researchers are concerned about ethical challenges, whether it's in the US or Vietnam, doesn't really matter. A lot of literature, you notice, is talking about unethical behavior, especially the last 5 to 6 years. We have obviously the crisis of mortgage and finance industry, so there's plenty of research. And we know ethics is basically doing what you say you would do. Ethical decision-making in this case is concerned regarding socially acceptable behavior in the workplace. So why are we doing this? There are many variables that could be studied. In this case, we're looking at actually the variable of when you're a student versus when you're actually a working adult in the banking and finance industry, and also at the impact of workshop on ethics for banking and finance professionals. So that part is very, very important. So why Vietnam? Vietnam is actually one of those countries that's developing fairly fast. They've had very good growth rate. It's actually with the US, it has a good relationship all the way since 1996. So the investment opportunities for American companies have been on the rise, as well as many other countries also. You see here, Ferris Lay says there are billions of dollars, for example, being invested in Vietnam. So it is an environment that is looking for foreigners to come. You see here, KFC is there, McDonald's is there, Starbucks went there this year. They have 2. I was just there recently for some classes. And actually the universities are there as well. American universities, Canadian universities, Australian universities. So it's kind of neat that they're getting the same curriculum that everybody else in any part of the world is getting. So these are some samples there of students actually who are getting Canadian, Australian degrees for themselves. So Vietnam is one of the 2 fastest countries according to the literature here. China is the first one, but in terms of growth, they're the second. So the point here is that culture to some extent makes a difference for you and I if we want to invest obviously in Vietnam. Most of you are familiar with Gert Hofstede's material in the cultural dimension, so you can look at this material, those of you who are interested in what their scores might be. But the point here is about Vietnam. If you looked at a paper this morning, the Washington Post, for example, what did they say? $6 million he's got to pay in judgment. Actually, why? Because of bribery. Where did he work? The last 3 years since 2010, he's been in Ho Chi Minh City at the American Embassy. This article, the Washington Post says, this gentleman, Sistak, for example, is corrupted the integrity of a process designed to screen visitors to the United States, a process that obviously has implications for our national security and so on. So what she's done is actually real life. We have to do this for a good reason. What's interesting, you'll notice in this paper they talk about they were charging up to $70,000 to grant visa. And he is the guy who's in charge of it, and they are recruiting other people who want to come to US, and he'll do an interview with them and sign it, but they have to pay $70,000. And so he's got to pay $6 million in judgment. Now, the question I have is, how long has he been cheating people? If he can pay $6 million, and his colleagues, the other 4, have actually over $9 million. So they've been doing this for quite a while, so you can look at this obviously in the paper today or even on the news tonight. Researchers are saying that, yeah, other departments like marketing, for example, accounting, they do have studies, but in finance and banking industry in Vietnam, there's very little studies on this. So she has 2 questions. What's the difference between ethical perceptions of students who are in the banking finance industry versus working adults in the industry? And also, what is the impact of training on ethics?
The method I use is scenario-based quantitative. So the questionnaire was designed pilot to job interview with practicing and academic individual were conducted to support validity and reliability of study. This study is primary resource data received basic approval from Little University Ethics Committee where I studied. One-way ANOVA and t-test were used for data analysis. Participants were Vietnamese and professionals were chosen from Vietnamese credit institution where I work, and students were chosen from final year banking class at Hanoi Business and Technology University. We have 90 participants for study 1 and 60 participants for study 2. Coach alpha here is a little bit low but achievable. Acceptable is 0.66 for study 1 for student group and 0.73 for study for professional group. And here the results we found in 4 out of 8 witness. We see the difference between ethical decision making of banking and finance professionals and students. And in overall score, we have 8 vignettes which represent different ethical dilemmas in daily banking and finance practice, which based on Vietnamese banking law and the data from State Bank. Now, for the second study, effect of teaching ethics, we follow the spectrum. The one group pre-protest study design was implemented for this study. Students and professionals were given a 3-hour specific targeted content-based ethics training workshop, and the workshop combined lectures and professional course of conduct discussion and exercise to address major issues of banking ethics. We have 1 week before training workshop, students have to complete pre-test ethical decision making, and 1 week after training program, participants complete post-test surveys. The pre and post-test consisted the same 8 vignettes, and we found that both students and professionals were improved after ethics training. However, students have significant here, and professional they improve, but not statistical significant. And in conclusion, we found that in 4 out of 8 vignettes, professional and student are different significantly in terms of ethical decision making, and teaching ethics was more effective for students than professionals. This study has some limitations. For sample size, self-reported data, ethics training taught by first author, and short time of interval ethics training. However, it opens some opportunity for future research, compare ethical decision making among different banks, big and small banks, local and foreign banks, and are conducting a cross-cultural study between different Asian countries. That's my presentation. Thank you.